Over 1 million federal government employees are nervous. How many will lose their jobs? Will entire federal agencies disappear? You have two categories when thinking about this topic. One side is in complete ecstasy. They're in bliss because the evil government finally has what's coming to them. And on the other side, you have federal employees, 2 million of them, and their families anxiously waiting. Let's start with federal agencies. We have over 400 federal agencies in the government. Many people think that number should be reduced. They have to go. But which ones are we talking about getting rid of? The first on that list has to be the Education Department. But this isn't a new idea. The Education Department was created in 1979. 1 year later, Ronald Reagan was campaigning on eliminating the Education Department.
We'll realize major savings by dismantling the Departments of Energy and Education.
But even though he was president for 8 years, he wasn't able to do it. So, can President Trump succeed where Reagan failed? Not without Congress. To get rid of it, first you would need a simple majority vote, both in the House and the Senate. Now, the Republicans can get that because they hold control of both chambers. But after that, you would need a supermajority in the Senate. You would need 60 senators to agree to abolish the Education Department. This is how the Senate looks right now. Even if every Republican senator voted to get rid of it, they would still need 7 Democrats to cross over to vote for the elimination of the Education Department. The reason for this is before you eliminate any federal agency, there needs to be true bipartisan support. And it's not just the Education Department, it's any federal agency that was created by Congress. So we're unlikely to see complete destruction of federal agencies. But you can still get rid of people, you can still fire people, but it won't be the way a lot of people are thinking, where you're not going to identify poor performers and then fire them. What will more likely occur is a RIF. It's a reduction in force. Now, this could be done for many reasons, to include budget cuts, reorganization, and structural changes. This involves the head of the agency, which is usually the secretary of the agency. These will all be appointed by President Trump. You also need the CFO. You would also need the general counsel and union representatives present. Now, as a federal employee, legally, you're supposed to be given at least 60-day notice before a RIF takes place. The entire process of the RIF could be between 8 to 12 months. There are also many ways to appeal a RIF. Now, Trump announced that Elon Musk and Vivek will lead the Department of Efficiency, DOGE, for 3 different reasons. 1, slash excessive regulations. 2, cut wasteful expenditures. And 3, restructure federal agencies. This is somewhat misleading because the title of Department of Efficiency, that sounds like a real federal department, and it's not. If you look here, it specifically says they will provide advice and guidance from outside the government. So essentially, they're advisors to help the government become more efficient under the Trump administration. Now, the way that these items are listed, I believe that's their priority. Number 1 says reduce regulations. If you look at Elon Musk and all of his companies and Vivek's company, you can see they have personal experience coming head-to-head with regulators. They want to pull some of those regulations back so they can build faster, so they can innovate faster, and that's understandable to a lot of people. The second thing that's listed here is cut wasteful expenditures. And you can look at the headlines of the Pentagon losing trillions of dollars, with a T, trillions of dollars, and you can pretty much get on board with that. There should be accountability when it comes to taxpayer dollars. And then if you shift your focus to the NIH, which is the National Institutes of Health, they give a lot of grants to labs. One grant that was given to a Florida lab was to turn monkeys transgender to study the HIV transmission rates. You can go on the NIH's website right now. You can look through all the grants that have been awarded to them. This is all by using taxpayer money. Like this one here. This is a mutant mouse study in the University of Missouri. They were given $1.4 million. Then there are cases of government spending too much when it comes to contracts. Now, the third thing mentioned is the restructuring of federal agencies. And we heard a lot of stories about multiple people doing the same type of job. Why is there so much overlap? And from my perspective, you will have people inside of a federal agency that they have a primary task and maybe 4 or 5 alternate tasks. And the reason that overlap exists is if somebody calls in sick and they can no longer perform the task or the mission, or if somebody decides to quit their job, you have a secondary, you have an alternate. So I don't believe the intent is to remove that. Those redundancies exist for a reason. It could be other cases where somebody isn't actually engaged in doing their daily duty, and there's no reason for that position to exist. If that's the case, if there is truly a job in the federal government where they don't have anything to do, then yeah, I'm a proponent of getting rid of it. This idea of DOGE being a new concept when it comes to government accountability or government oversight, it's not a new concept. It's the whole reason that the Government Accountability Office exists. GAO exists, and what their function is to uncover fraud, waste, and abuse, and they do it. You can go on GAO's website and you can find so many reports. Those reports are what I use sometimes to make video topics. And then you have the Office of Inspector General. So many agencies have another body that oversees them and uncovers fraud. President Trump has issued a timeline for this new efficiency project. It is supposed to be complete by July 4th, 2026. So it's not really that much time. And some of us might be thinking, can't President Trump just sign an executive order? Can he not just sign a piece of paper and initiate rifts throughout the government? An executive order can direct federal agencies to take certain actions, like reorganization or restructuring. That can lead to a rift. But what an executive order cannot do is bypass the legal requirements of a rift. Those are set by Congress and federal regulations. But some people, they think that he'll ignore those rules. I strongly disagree that will happen. Instead of ordering a wave of rifts to hit the federal government, what is more likely when it comes to reducing federal agency size? Number one is attrition. People just naturally leaving the agency and not backfilling them. Number two is a hiring freeze. That can help with attrition. We saw this during the first term. But nobody knows for sure exactly how this is going to play out. What we do know is the current continuing resolution, that's what's keeping the government running right now, that is set to expire December 20th. That's the Friday before Christmas. So my guess is we'll probably see another CR take place, not a full budget signed, because they're going to want to wait until President Trump is in office in order to actually sign the entire budget for the year. So what are federal employees doing? I ran a poll on the YouTube channel to ask, what are you doing based on the election results? Over 800 people voted. 92% said that they are staying in their government job or waiting to see how things play out. Only 8% plan to leave federal service. Even though most people are concerned, they are going to stay. Now, there's also this underlying assumption that telework and remote work, that's slowly going to go away. And there's some truth behind that, I believe, but it's not going to go away completely because it's still being used as a tool to recruit and retain high-quality talent. Aside from the education department, we have a few other agencies that should be highly concerned, to include the IRS. Under Joe Biden, he signed the Inflation Reduction Act, and that gave the IRS $80 billion over 10 years. They were able to hire 10,000 more employees. So we know that's probably going to be a target. Another one's EPA. Republicans in general, they don't like the agency. One employee was recently quoted stating, "It's a new dystopian hellscape." Another one said that people are majorly freaking out. And this is probably because in Trump's previous administration, he ordered a hiring freeze for this agency. He also ordered separation buyouts. So in this case, if you've been a federal employee for 3 years or more, they could pay you up to $25,000 just to get out of there, just to quit. So some people took him up on that offer. Will that happen again? It's a possibility. But it's not all downsizing. Some agencies should do well, to include the Department of Homeland Security. So President Trump has promised to deport millions of people from this country. That's going to require a beef up to the DHS, to include Border Patrol agents. I believe he wants to hire at least 10,000 more. He wants to increase the recruitment incentive and the retention incentive for those agents. DOD will probably grow as well. It grew during his last administration, both in budget and in workforce. But the bottom line is, I do not think anyone should be in panic mode. Should you have an exit strategy? Yeah, of course. You should have a plan B, maybe a plan C on what to do if your job isn't there in the future. You should always be thinking about that. One thing that we have learned about President Trump, I believe, is that he is somewhat unpredictable. So we don't know exactly what he's going to do. In his last administration, there was a lot of prediction that he would reduce the size of the government. And what ended up happening is the government grew under his leadership. So really, we don't know. But if you're interested in a federal government job, and maybe you have a lot of questions on your mind about the hiring process, about the interviews, the salary, things like that, I did a live stream recently. I answered over a dozen questions. If you're interested in that, I want you to check this video out next. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.